Well, Exiles, we finally got an update from Jonathan Rogers about POE and the highly anticipated 3.26 league that everybody has been grasping for. And to say the announcement was a disappointment would probably be the biggest understatement of the year. Um, this announcement, I'm sure, is sending shockwaves through the community. No dates have been confirmed for POE 1's league. No timeline for Path of Exile's 2.0 patch and update. And the admission that Grinding Gear Games has underestimated just how much work POE 2 would demand. But I want to talk about in this video the real questions that I think need to be asked. What does this mean for the future of both games? And more importantly, how will this impact Grinding Gear Games' long-standing reputation for transparency and trust? I want to talk about this all in this video today. And then at the end, I'm going to give you my final thoughts on what I would call probably one of the biggest disappointments in the history of Grinding Gear Games. Let's get to it. What exactly did Jonathan say? Here's the TLDR. No confirmed date for Path of Exile 1's next league, just that it's coming soon. No clear timeline for Path of Exile 2.0 patch, and all of Grinding Gear Games' resources are focused on Path of Exile 2, and unfortunately, POE 1 is taking a hit for it. Now, Jonathan took full responsibility, admitting they miscalculated their ability to support both games at the same time. They were confident they could do it, and that's all we heard leading up to the release of Path of Exile 2, that they could definitely manage and support both games. Well, now they're saying they can't. And let's be real, this is horrible news for Path of Exile 1 players who have been very loyal to the game for many, many years. Their game is, let's call it what it is. It's being sidelined for the new and shiny Path of Exile 2. And if you've been paying attention, you're already seeing it. Unfortunately, there is a divide happening right now between the POE 1 and, dare I say, the POE 2 player base. It was already there, and after tonight's announcement, unfortunately, I believe this is something we need to keep our eye on and is growing. That's the sad part of what happened tonight, among other things. Now, Grinding Gear Games has always maintained that they could support both games, like I said earlier. That's been their message from day one. But now, that promise has been broken. And that's what makes this announcement, dare I say, so dangerous. It's not just about a delayed league or missing features. It's about trust. Path of Exile 1 players are understandably upset. I totally understand why they're upset. They built this community. They have kept the game alive for over a decade. That's Path of Exile 1, obviously. And now they're being shoved to the side and they're being asked to wait while all the focus shifts to the new one, the new game, Path of Exile 2. And yeah, and the biggest question is, how long are they going to wait? Will they give Grinding Gear Games time to figure this out? Or will they feel abandoned and start living in frustration? Worst case scenario. GGG owes everything to Path of Exile 1. It gave them the success and platform to create POE 2 in the first place. And now to many players, it feels like they're turning their back on it. And this is a major, major issue. One that we can only assess in its full entirety. Unfortunately, time is going to have to evolve in order to find out just how much of an impact this is going to have on the future, not just of Path of Exile 1, but also of Path of Exile 2. Over a decade, Grinding Gear Games has been one of the most respected studios in the industry when it comes to transparency. They built their reputation on clear communication, consistent updates, and players' trust. But today, I dare say that reputation took a hit. Whether you personally believe Grinding Gear Games will make things right or not, the reality is this is a major kink in their armor. They said they could support both games, and now they can't. That's a problem. Does this mean the end of Path of Exile 1? No, of course not. But it does mean players are going to start questioning Grinding Gear Games in a way they have never before. And the real test will be how they handle the next few months. Do they deliver on their promises? Do they find a way to balance both games? Or does the frustration continue to grow? Jonathan said a new POE league is coming soon. But how soon? And will it be enough to satisfy the POE 1 community? And what about POE 2? It's clear that Grinding Gear Games is going all in on its development, but if POE 1 players feel abandoned, will they even want to transition over, or will they start looking elsewhere? These are the questions we don't have the answers to yet, but what we do know is that this very moment, right now, might be the most critical time in Grinding Gear Games history. Can they repair the damage? Can they manage the growing divide? Or is this the start of something bigger? Now, there's a lot there's a lot to unpack here, and I've given it some serious consideration. Instead of jumping on this right away when it first was announced, I decided that I was gonna take the night to think about everything, and I have a couple of personal comments to make, and this may be relevant or not. Take it for what it's worth. Just a little bit about myself for those of you that don't know me. I didn't start playing Path of Exile until the Crucible League 3.21, so I'm very new to Path of Exile. I probably have just as many hours in Path of Exile as I do in Path of Exile 2. I have over 350 hours in Path of Exile 2. I probably have a little bit more in Path of Exile. So I wasn't there from day one with Path of Exile, but my heart goes out to that player that's been there since day one for Path of Exile. And I can totally empathize with the feelings that are happening right now. I do not want to discard or discount a Path of Exile loyal, the loyal player base in Path of Exile, who right now are completely outraged and disgusted. They're valid. They are valid concerns, and I think their being upset should be recognized, and it should be accepted that they feel this way. Because I know if I was there since day one and this new and shiny game comes out and they totally turn their back on the game that I spent a lot of money and resources and my time, which allowed the studio the platform to make this other game. Come on, put yourself in that person's shoes. Of course you're going to feel disgusted and outraged. I totally get it. So I don't want to discount that player because they deserve this moment where they're outcrying and complaining that how dare Grinding Gear Games turn their back on us. We gave you the opportunity. We set the stage for you to be able to make this other game. So, my full empathy for that player base. But from a business perspective, you cannot throw shade at Grinding Gear Games for looking at this from a business perspective, guys. Like, the numbers are super clear. Path of Exile's best day is Path of Exile 2's early access, not even full release yet, is Path of Exile 2's average day. It's a bigger game. It has a bigger player base. It's just, it is what it is. Those are the numbers. So you can't blame Grinding Gear Games for giving it attention. So that's those two perspectives. Now, overall, and I have to say, even someone like myself with a very short lifespan in the Path of Exile world, having only started playing Path of Exile until Crucible League 3.21, I've always maintained and I've always respected and trusted Grinding Gear Games. They've earned that trust. They earn that respect. However, like I said earlier on in the video, they miscalculated the amount of resources it took to manage both games. And that mistake, unfortunately, has cost Path of Exile 1 players this world that they're going to live in now, where they're currently going 7 months, and it's going to get more, in a league. They haven't seen new content in over 7 months, and it's probably going to be 8, 9, 10 months before they see something new. That is a stain on Grinding Gear Games armor. That armor is polished, shiny. Whenever Grinding Gear Games says something, people believe it. They respect their transparency and they trust them. Today's announcement puts that in jeopardy to a certain degree, I would argue with you. And even me, someone that has always said, and I've said this many times in a lot of my Path of Exile 2's videos, it's in the hands of Grinding Gear Games, so I trust they're going to do the right thing. Now, I still believe they are going to do the right thing. I still believe in Grinding Gear Games. I think this is a hiccup, one that they're going to recover from. Unfortunately, depending on the time frame for them to get out of this, that period is going to be rocky. It's going to be bumpy. And dare I say, unfortunately, there is going to be two camps here. There's going to be the POE 1 camp and the POE 2 camp. And for that, I'm sad about that, because this is a very welcoming committee. Even me, a small little creator, I received so many welcoming thoughts and messages from other content creators and from the community, just helping me out with learning and understanding both games. It's a very welcoming community. So I'm very sad. If there's one thing that is the most that I'm sad about, is that there's now going to be this infighting, which, you know, off the top of my head, my first thought about that is, come on, guys, this is a video game. But I respect the fact that Path of Exile 1 players feel like they've just been thrown to the side and no one cares. So I empathize with that. That's not a good feeling. And they deserve better. They deserve more. We have Path of Exile 2 because of them. So I don't want to discount that, but we also have to understand these are not just studios that create video games. They're also a business. And of course, if you remove your gamer hat and you put on your business hat, your CEO hat, this makes sense. Unfortunately, they miscalculated, and all the resources are on Path of Exile 2 right now, which I have to say I'm having a blast playing. I love Path of Exile 2. And yes, it does require a lot of attention, and there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And I'm going to also add to the mix here this all, and in my last video, I talked about the timeline and why the end game in Path of Exile 2 is not polished. It all leads back to the infamous date in October when Vessel of Hatred launched. And like I stated in my last video, Grinding Gear Games saw all this complaining about the lack of, people were having fun, but the lack of end game just wasn't there in Vessel of Hatred. That was in October 8th. And Jonathan mentions October, they pulled all their resources to the end game. It's tied to that, I would argue. So that miscalculation and pulling all the resources out of POE 1 and putting them on Path of Exile 2 brings us to today. And I don't know, there's no sugarcoating it. There's no, oh, just get over it. Oh, this is understandable. Yes, yes, yes. But we also have to respect the fact that you never forget where you come from. And it's because of Path of Exile 1 that Path of Exile 2 exists. Not only from a video game development standpoint, because of all the assets and the knowledge Grinding Games has, but also because there was a player base for 10 plus years that supported this game and lifted it up to be recognized as the best ARPG in the market. So you cannot discount that, nor should you shrug off comments about Path of Exile 1 players being disappointed. All of them are valid. Now, I would hope, and this may fall on deaf ears, because when people are angry, they kind of turn off their listening skills. But I would hope, and I would plea with anyone that watches this video, regardless of what camp you're on, don't burn the house down over this. Don't burn it down. I do believe Grinding Gear Games is going to get us all out of this. You're going to get your 3.26. Path of Exile 2 is going to get its 2.0. And dare I say, I know it's too early. It's too early to say this because the wound is still fresh. But I'm an optimist. Dare I say, this is all going to be stuff that we're going to sweep under the rug in 5-6 months. 3.26 will hopefully be a banger. 2.0 will be a banger. And then we can forget about this little bump in the road. Well, right now it doesn't feel like a little bump. This is a major bump. But I am worried. They took a hit. Their armor took a hit tonight. And that's unfortunate. But I believe there's enough trust in the community that we'll all get over it. Even me, someone that has really respected Grinding Gear Games, and I believe what they say. I always do, and I still do. But I have to say now, I'm going to be a little bit more cognizant because of what happened. Now, anyone can make a mistake. These are not superhuman people. Jonathan made a judgment, and he was wrong, and he fell on the sword today. And I gave him major props for that. That takes a lot of cojones to do that. So he's not shy to fall on the sword and admit defeat. So I give him major props to do. That's not easy to do, to stand up in front of us and do that. So I give him major props, but they're gonna have to earn some of the player base. The trust is gone. They're gonna have to re-earn it with them. But I still believe in them. They are a top-notch studio, and I wholeheartedly believe that they are going to get through this. It's unfortunate that they couldn't do it in the time frame that they wanted to, and that we're not talking about 3.26 coming in February and 2.0 coming down the pipe soon, but it is what it is. Anyway, I want to hear from you now. Does this announcement change your view of grinding gear games? Are you a PoE 1 player who feels left behind? Or are you all in PoE 2? Let's talk about it in the comments, guys. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think. Obviously, there's a cloud over us right now, but I believe, sunny days are going to be there for both Path of Exile 1 players and Path of Exile 2 players. And I strongly believe, and this, let me finish with my final thought. I do not think there exists a world without Path of Exile 1. I wholeheartedly believe that Path of Exile 1 will continue to be the beautiful game that it is. It will only continue to get better. And I say the same thing with Path of Exile 2. I do believe in a world that Path of Exile 1 exists and Path of Exile 2 exists. I do believe that. I do not believe the doomsayers that this is it for Path of Exile 1. I don't believe that. But what do I know? That's just my thought, one man's opinion. Let me know what you think. And as always, thank you so much for watching my content. If you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would appreciate the support of my content. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free, and it would mean the world to me. Anyway, brighter days ahead, guys. Brighter days ahead. Don't lose sight of that, okay? All right. We'll see you later. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed. So get over it.